Well, welcome to the Middlesex Moments radio show. I'm Dr. Anna Wasesha, president of Middlesex Community College, right here in Middletown, Connecticut. And today my guests are Robin Anderelli, who's the new executive director at the Rockfall Foundation, and Christine Witkowski, who teaches environmental science here at the college and is a member of the board of the Rockfall Foundation. And I myself am a member of the board, so we have a strong presence today of people who know about the Rockfall Foundation, but with varying degrees of depth, I would say. Even though I've been there for a long time on the board, I'm always learning something new about what the foundation is doing. So, first of all, Robin, why don't you just sort of introduce yourself, because as the newest member of the Rockfall Foundation?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me. And as you say, varying degrees of familiarity with the organization. I've been there for 3 weeks now as executive director of the foundation, but it's been a whirlwind and a fascinating time, and I'm learning so much. But essentially, the Rockfall Foundation exists to promote and support environmental education, conservation, preservation in the lower Connecticut River Valley region. So that includes all of Middlesex County plus Lyme and Old Lyme. And we do that by partnering with different organizations like the community colleges, like Wesleyan University and other conservation organizations to present educational opportunities, different workshops and programs throughout the year. And we also provide grant funds. And I believe the college has actually been a recipient of our grant funds in the past. But we're supporting organizations of all sizes, doing all different types of work, and helping to sustain some of their programming, launch new programs, which is always very exciting. Innovative things are happening all of the time, so we're happy to be a part of that. And always looking for new ways to help promote our mission and our message.
And it will take some time for you. But you were involved in some environmental work previously?
Yes, I was. I was director of marketing and fund development for an organization called Earth Place in Westport, which is a nature center and a preserve of about 62 acres of land and a sanctuary with lots of wildlife and a wonderful education program. So I was doing that for a short time, but I've always been in nonprofit management, so that part of it is not all that new to me. But
and are you native to Connecticut?
I am native to Connecticut,
like native
not invasive. Native to Connecticut, grew up in West Haven and in the New Haven region, and even went to school in Connecticut, so I haven't gone very far. But, there's so much here to learn, to appreciate, to protect. We're learning all the time. We're working with other people all the time to advocate for certain things. So Connecticut, it's such a small geographic state, but there are varying degrees of types of communities and types of open space and those who don't have much open space. So making sure that people have access to that is really important for us too.
It is really important. And there's this tradition or legacy of the Wadsworths being involved with the Rockfall Foundation and setting aside here in Middletown.
Yes.
It's a state park now, the Wadsworth Falls.
Correct, which was once Rockfall Corporation land, and so that was given to the state, and the foundation is named for the falls that are there in the park. Same as the Wadsworth Mansion was once the home of Colonel Clarence Wadsworth, and he was the one who set up the corporation that eventually became the foundation.
And they had help from the Olmsted Brothers Corporation. See, now you can tell that I read the website too. But I've really always loved Frederick Law Olmsted, who did the grounds for the Chicago World's Fair, whenever that was, and designed the campus at Stanford University, really understood, and Central Park, of course, so in New York. So really understood the importance of parks and green space and including it in the design of intentional places.
Yes. And, that was really a priority for the Colonel, was to have green space. He didn't so much want the corporation to be a lobbying organization. He wanted it to protect and preserve. And we have since added education as a major component because we feel that the more people know, the better stewards they will be of their environment.
Right, absolutely. I completely agree with that. We have to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk with Christine about Meet Your Greens, which is one of the ways that the Rockfall Foundation opens up its ideas and programs to the general public. Well, we're back. It's the Middlesex Moments radio show, and today is dedicated entirely to the Rockfall Foundation. So Robin Anderelli, their brand new executive director, is with us, and Christine Witkowski, who teaches environmental science and is a real advocate for sustainability here at Middlesex, and I think also in the larger community. So you've gotten involved through Rockfall, maybe before you even joined the board, with Meet Your Greens.
That's right. Yes. Well, as a board member, I took over chairing the education committee. I think we're calling it the program committee. It has changed names a couple of times. And one of the things that we do is we plan something called Meet Your Greens, which is a monthly happy hour networking kind of opportunity at different locations around Middlesex County. And we invite a speaker or a guest to each one, different topics. And it's just a nice opportunity for people from the community to come together, have some drinks. We usually also are eating as well. And it's a very informal kind of occasion. You know, we have a quote unquote speaker, but it's usually done very informally. And there's an opportunity for people to just talk to each other and interact with the speaker as well. And so we've been doing that for quite some time. But with this committee, we've been able to do better planning further out. So we have a good schedule of events with a lot more advance notice, and you can see once we confirm the events, you can see on the website who's coming up, who's going to be a speaker, and where we're going to be doing Meet Your Greens. And it's something that's been growing in the last year or so. We've been seeing more and more people coming out, and it just makes it that much more enjoyable to have more people interacting. And some of the places that we've been really all over downtown Middletown at the Tavern. We've gone to Perk on Main and Durham. We did a farm tour this summer in Higganum, the Wellstone Farm. We went to the Quarry Ridge Golf Course in Portland for a speaker. And then upcoming on October 20th, we have a Meet Your Greens at the Indian Springs Golf Course. And our speaker for that will be John Green of the New England Conservation Services, and he's going to talk about energy audits, and it's good timing with the cold weather starting to come in. So that's the next one.
And what's unique about John's talk is he's going to focus on the efforts to make low-income housing more energy efficient and how to work with residents to help them understand what they can do, simple things that they can do. And it's really, I think it's very much a wave that we're seeing now where multiple housing units will be built with that in mind, to be more sustainable, more green, and more energy efficient.
So I would really recommend that anybody who's interested in these energy audits attend this meeting, because it's very economical to have them come through and take a look at everything in your house, from the sorts of rubber resistors that you have, or that surround a doorway, to how your shower heads, those things. And then they can give you low cost and no cost parts and pieces and help you install them. I mean, it's a remarkable opportunity for people. Yeah, and having come from a very cold climate, I mean, I remember people actually literally. This is why they had drapes, I think, in the Middle Ages, hanging blankets over windows.
Sure. Keep out the draft.
Right, and we don't know. We never know what kind of a winter we're going to have. So, yeah, it's a good idea to do that. And then I see from the website that following on November 17th, you've got the social gathering. So this is going to be kind of an open agenda, just come and hang out and talk. And
yes, we do it every year in November because things start to get busier for people with the holidays coming up, so we just keep it very informal. That's scheduled for the Tuscany Grill. And so we do the same thing every November. And then December, we don't have a Meet Your Greens for precisely that reason, that it's getting even busier with the holidays. So we just take a month off.
But just a few short days before that kind of open meeting on the 17th, you're going to be showing a film.
Yes. Rockfall is part of a group in the community that puts on an environmental film series every year, where we alternate between Wesleyan and Middlesex Community College for a location. We show 2 films each fall and each spring, and the next film in the series is called Christmas Without China, and it's Monday, November 14th at 7 p.m. here at Middlesex. And we picked that to time it for the upcoming holidays, and in particular, the following week after we show that film is the notorious Black Friday, when people go on a binge of shopping. So we hope that this film will give people something to think about as they go about their Christmas shopping and other holiday shopping. And it's a very thought-provoking film. It does also try to follow some people who are trying to not buy anything that was made in China, and some of the challenges of doing that for shopping for children, for example. How do you find toys that were not made in China? So some really thought-provoking things in the film.
Right. And I think it's impossible to find a bicycle that was made in the United States anymore, and most of them are made in China.
Yep, and I think that's true for a lot of the toys and things that kids have become accustomed to here, just an essential part of childhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in a perfect world, it would be great to have more education following some of these films. So I bring that up because last year you showed the true cost, and I'm sure it's available to download on various websites if people are interested in seeing it. But I think it also kind of goes to the sort of being very sensitive to how much you're buying and then what happens to it when you're the life cycle of what it is that you're buying. Yes. Because that would certainly be true with all the plastic toys that children get, as well as the kind of labor issues. And the true cost was about the entire clothing industry and how it's changed and how we don't really have any seasons. Have you seen it, Robin?
I haven't seen the film, but I did read about it.
Yeah. I've
really
been so disturbed ever since I saw it, because one of the worst parts, I don't know this, but there were many worst parts, but one was that when we give clothing to the Goodwill, we think we're doing a really wonderful thing, but the Goodwill doesn't have the capacity, or maybe there aren't the markets to buy those clothes secondhand or used or gently worn, and so they end up in kind of landfills, some of them in developing countries where the dyes in the fabric and the actual content of the fabric breaks down and pollutes the waterways. I mean, so I'd like to learn more about that. I don't really, have all the knowledge I'd like to have about that.
And I think that's what we all feel with these films, that even those of us who are pretty steeped in, environmental issues, these films are so eye-opening in so many ways, and it just opens the door to, more questions about how we can be more sustainable. And it's a bit overwhelming too, because some of these things are institutional, they're international and institutional and hard to change. And we do look for films that have some optimism to them, where we're looking at people who are making a difference and making changes. We don't want people to come away from these films just feeling hopeless and how terrible everything is. It is challenging to find the films that highlight that, though, the good things that are happening to address these things. But we hope that people leave with some sense that there's hope and that there's something we can do individually and collectively to address these really difficult issues.
Right.
Yeah, the last film that we screened just earlier in September was called Dukale's Dream, and that was a bit more hopeful. Yes. It was a film documenting Hugh Jackman and his journey to Africa and meeting a farmer there, a coffee farmer, and that eventually that whole episode inspired him to open a coffee shop and create a coffee line with sustainable coffee beans. So he's now in this whole network where he's buying from the co-op that supports this farmer and many other farmers like him. And so that was a bit more uplifting, a bit more positive of a film, but also had people discussing things and debating things afterward, which is always very healthy to have conversations.
Right.
So it was interesting.
Well, we hope that the sort of fair trade movement will begin to take some more prominence, among the retailers and the people. Well, this is actually a movement, right? My daughter's always teaching me new things about the sustainability movement, and it's some sort of the term possibly is some kind of conscientious buying. It's a way that you use your consumerism to promote and support causes, so that every time you make a choice, even the food you buy, right, is an environmental choice, but that you can also do it to, for example, support the farmers directly, and that makes a big difference. So tell me a little bit about what the Rockfall Foundation has got on the docket for the grants program, because I think that is also really an important piece of information.
Sure. Yes, we have an upcoming deadline of November 16th for grant applications, but the biggest news is that we've expanded our region. So where in the past we were only granting to towns and organizations within Middlesex County, we are now also granting to Lyme and Old Lyme. So we consider it the entire lower Connecticut River Valley. So that's significant, and we really want to try to get the word out to those organizations that they have an opportunity to apply. We have around $35,000 or $40,000 in grants that will be given out this next round. And although environmental education is certainly a priority for us, we still look at conservation and preservation projects or just overall environmental issues that might be put together in some type of a program in a very innovative way. So we encourage thoughtful grant applications, certainly, but our process is not overwhelming, and we find it quite simple, but we're always available for questions as well. So
that's good.
Folks can visit rockfallfoundation.org, or they can give us a call, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Do they need to be a nonprofit organization?
They can be a nonprofit or a municipality or a school. And sometimes they can partner with someone who would qualify as one of those three entities or act as fiduciary. So we'll look at a lot of different types of projects.
And once again, the website is Rockfall. You don't have to say www anymore, but
These days you don't.
rockfallfoundation.org.
.org is the important part, yes.
So people should go there and take a look. So we will have to take another break right now, and when we come back, we're going to talk about issues related to the environment. Well, we're back to the Middlesex Moments radio show, and I'm Anna Wasesha. I should have said that before, probably. I think I might have at the top of the program. President of the college, and today my guests are Robin Anderelli, the spanking brand new, 3 weeks into the job, executive director of the Rockfall Foundation, which is located in the DeKoven House. You know, I for years drove by that building not really sure what it was. So anybody who drives by the intersection of it's Washington Street and really the Route 9 and DeKoven. There's this beautiful old building there, and the Rockfall Foundation is there, and you have a bunch of tenants who are also all involved in environmental
for the most part.
Activity.
Yeah, for the most part. The nice thing about having that much space is we can offer below market rate rent to so many of the groups that are there. They include the Connecticut Association of Conservation and Inland Wetlands Commission, the Connecticut Land Conservation Council, Middlesex Land Trust, Connecticut River Watershed Council, and others. So, and it's nice that we're all in one space. We can quickly collaborate and speak to one another and ask questions. So it's very convenient as well.
Yeah. So as I said before, I was on the website this morning just checking to see that I kind of knew some of the things that everybody ought to know about the Rockfall Foundation. And the one photograph of the DeKoven building is a snow scene, which is kind of humorous in a way. You know, having come from Minnesota, like if you look at a college catalog in Minnesota, you rarely see snow pictures, which is really not much truth in advertising. It's beautiful, beautiful green trees, fall, but they don't focus heavily on the snow. So perhaps, I know you're working on the website, so you might do 4 seasons because it's really quite beautiful. It's a really old building surrounded by trees and in the middle of the asphalt jungle. So I think it sort of stands as an example of what we need to preserve in our environments. And Christine Witkowski is here with us today, and she's teaching environmental science here at Middlesex and promoting all kinds of sustainability activities, and then front and center in the development of the programs for the Meet Your Greens calendar. So what have you got upcoming?
Well, we've laid out a tentative schedule for next year, and we have some great potential speakers and a couple of people who have been returning each year that are particularly popular with Meet Your Greens. One of them is Lori Brown, who's the director of the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters, and she comes each spring to Meet Your Greens, usually in March. That's what we're shooting for this year, and she talks about the legislation that's before the state legislature relating to the environment. And it's a really great overview. It gives people a sense of where they can take action. And it's like I always tell my students that, with environmental issues, what's happening at the state level is a really important area to focus your efforts for making change, because it's the states that are doing a lot of the legislation that's really addressing things that aren't being addressed at a federal level. So you can really have a big impact. And Lori does a great job of describing the efforts that are underway. So she'll hopefully be returning this year in March. And we also get an update usually from Matt Lesser and or other representatives, senators and representatives who can talk directly about their involvement in the environmental legislation happening that session. So those are both our typical spring speakers, and so that's March and April.
And one of our goals is to have more geographically diverse meeting locations and to have speakers from different areas. Again, since the foundation has expanded its grants program to include all of the lower Connecticut River Valley, we're hoping to now have Meet Your Greens in Lyme, Old Lyme over some time. But certainly we want to reach Essex, maybe Deep River, Clinton this next session. And so we've been talking to Chris Dobbs, who's the executive director of the Connecticut River Museum, to have the River Museum host one of our Meet Your Greens. We may visit Chamard Vineyards or another location like that, and possibly Three Sisters Farm, which is a bee farm in Essex. So we're looking at different places, different topics, different speakers, and we're always open to suggestions too. It's one of the things we ask folks when they attend Meet Your Greens, but in advance of attending, you can certainly email us with a suggestion for a topic you'd like to have discussed. We're always welcome to that.
These things are free and open to the public?
Yeah, and when they occur at an establishment like the Tavern or Park on Main, and folks are responsible for purchasing their own beverages and everything. But otherwise, there's no charge, and you don't have to be a member of any particular group or pre-register. We just invite you to come and meet with us and meet some folks who are like-minded, hopefully, and it's actually very fun. It's it's based on green drinks, which is a more regional type of an after hours, and ours has that educational slant to it.
Did you say bee farmer? Like
Yes.
BEE?
Yes, bees.
Bees. I think it's Three Sisters is corn, squash, and beans, but these are bees. So
Yes.
what does a bee farmer do?
Well, he has hives and he has honey. Yes, so they do have their own honey that comes from the farm, and they do some other things too. They actually have a non-toxic insect repellent, and they have a couple of other products, lotions and things like that are actually really fun, and they do a great job. Of course, they're all sustainable products, so it's
Right.
it's interesting.
And I mean, I saw a headline the other day, but I've gotten to the point where I don't trust headlines any longer. But the headline was that honeybees, maybe bees in general, were being placed on the endangered species
Yes.
list.
It's true.
So, attending this would be actually a trip to the farm. It would
Yeah,
just be
if we could do
a
it,
way
sure.
to learn more about bees, because without them, agriculture will be in deep trouble.
That's very true. And, I think pesticides are probably to blame here, and people are very quick to use chemical pesticides. And so that's something that's a hot topic now.
Right.
The losses of bees in Connecticut have been particularly dramatic in the last couple of years. The Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station has been doing studies and tracking this, and so whatever we can do to support the bee population is really necessary.
It's true with monarch butterflies too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Milkweed. We must plant more
Milkweed.
milkweed.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Well, there's just the thing about the environmental field is that it's so broad. For example, the clothing industry impacts the environmental field, and here it is. We're talking about bees and other things, but there's almost no end to the topics.
It's a part of every aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
Which is what makes it so interesting, as far as teaching it and for my students and for the general public, that you can find connections to, really pretty much anything you do in your life is going to have some impact somewhere. And the more we can be aware of those impacts, the more, conscious we can be of our actions.
We were, the two of us were at a presentation by a woman who wrote a book called Growing a Life, and she's studied 92 youth across the country who work in youth gardening programs. But she surrounded it with a lot of neurological research data, including the idea that when you walk through the forest or you walk in a heavily treed or green area, you pick up chemicals, maybe pheromones, that actually impact your brain, and how creative it is, for example, and how focused it can be. And she talked about, this was surprising to me, that if you walk for 2 hours, which I consider a hike, not a walk, but if you hike for 2 hours, the positive impact on your body, or lowering your blood pressure, changing levels of hormones in your body, lasts for 2 months.
Wow.
So yeah, it's
Pretty amazing.
It is, yeah. So, and I think there's that kind of emotional response. I mean, the youth that she interviewed reported over and over again that they felt more like they were in control of their lives, but also calmer. And that school itself is not a very calm environment. So as a kind of punctuation of the school day, to spend time in gardens, some of which were on the top roofs of buildings. But it broke the dreary and unhappy and highly stressful experiences that we're having during the day at the school. So, yeah.
One of the things that Rockfall actually supported, going back a couple of decades now, they funded the trails here on campus at Middlesex, and we're now trying to reopen those trails because they became fairly overgrown over the years. But for exactly that reason, so that our students can get out there in the middle of a stressful day and take a walk in the woods. And so we're really excited about being able to offer that to, and not just students, but faculty and staff and the general public too. But that all started with a grant from Rockfall back in the 80s. To fund the trails. So the work that they're doing really supports some of those goals.
Exactly. And I also was mentioning to Robin that a long time ago, not probably as long as the trail project. Rockfall funded the planting of the trees that form the grove on this campus, which is, so, and those trees are beautiful, and they are the place that the Art Farm production company puts on Shakespeare every summer, so it is really terrific.
It's a beautiful backdrop
right.
for the productions, yeah.
Yeah, when she was talking, her name is Ellen Pavek, and when she was talking about her book, I was reminded that Aristotle was famous for the walking schools that he ran. So I mean, a very, very long time ago in ancient Greece, when people were trying to figure out is there meaning to life and answer these really difficult, complex questions that they were facing, which are the questions that are eternal for all of us. He did it by walking with people, and in the course of those walks, people were able to think more deeply. So, yeah, there's a lot of really wonderful things to learn about the environment.
There are.
So, we were talking a little bit about Christmas without China, and we're coming up to the end of the calendar year. We're coming into Christmas season, and it's the end of the tax year for a lot of people. So an alternative I always like to remind people is that for those people who really have a hard time figuring out what to buy for someone, for the people who don't need anything any longer, if you decide instead to make a contribution in their name to an organization that supports some things they believe in, and I would think the Rockfall Foundation would be a really great place to send a check instead of trying to find whatever it might be, the perfect ballpoint pen or handkerchief or whatever.
Or red sweater.
Yeah. Exactly.
I completely agree with you. And, as much as we are a granting organization, we do still raise funds. And we feel that, it allows people to join with us, to pool our funds, pool our capacity to give greater and to have a larger impact. So we certainly do accept donations.
So Rockfall Foundation can be located on the World Wide Web.
At rockfallfoundation.org.
And I encourage everybody who's listening to this program to check them out and to think about going to Meet Your Greens as a way to introduce yourself to the work that Rockfall does and the environmental issues that we're facing here in this part of the state. And I want to thank you both, Christine Witkowski and Robin Anderelli, for being with me on the program today. And anyone in the listening audience who wants to learn more about Middlesex Community College can also find us on that same World Wide Web at mxcc.edu. This is Anna Wasesha wishing you all a very good day.